Hi. Unfortunately, Darrell Lum, my supervisor, is off island, so this is his presentation. I'm basically the veteran backup quarterback who's going to try and run this game plan. I'm going to be going through this. There's going to be some, I guess, my personal improvising since I don't know exactly what Darrell presents. So I do work for the Department of Health Clean Water Branch, and this is the updates to the Hawaii Administrative Rules and our NPDES permits. So basically, with the Department of Health Clean Water Branch, this is an overview, not necessarily slide by slide, that I'm going to be going through. So the status of our NPDES general permits, the different appendices for the different types of discharges, a blanket Section 4 on water quality certification that was issued earlier this year, an update on our Chapter 11-54, which is our water quality standards, the toxics update and a triennial review, and finally the e-permitting electronic signature program that we're going to try and start to implement soon. So this is our organization, the State of Hawaii Department of Health, Environmental Health Administration, the Environmental Management Division, and then down to us, the Clean Water Branch. So we're responsible for administering and enforcing the statewide water pollution laws and rules achieved through permitting of point sources, compliance monitoring, inspections, investigations of complaints, and state water quality monitoring. So our organization, our branch, is broken up into three sections, well, actually 4 sections. We have our engineering section that handles the permitting, our monitoring section that handles the monitoring and statewide water quality monitoring, our enforcement section that does the inspections and compliance, and finally our polluted runoff control program that handles polluted runoff. So this slide is about the water quality standards, which is done through Hawaii Administrative Rules, Title 11, Chapter 54. It's the provisions of the state of Hawaii approved by the EPA that describes the desired condition of a water body and the required level of protection. It's the legal basis for controlling pollution entering state water from a variety of sources, and it consists of the following. It's not necessarily organized this way because it's also broken up regarding the different types of waters, but it's through the designated uses, which is the goals of the water bodies done but through classifications, the criteria for each of the classifications, and our anti-degradation policy that applies to all of our waters. Then the NPDES permit program is administered through Hawaii Administrative Rules, Title 11, Chapter 55. So an NPDES permit is a license issued by the DOH to a person granting permission to discharge specified amounts of water pollution to state surface waters under certain conditions. It's a water quality standards implementation tool. So it contains limits on what you can discharge, monitoring and reporting requirements, and other provisions to ensure that the discharge does not hurt water quality or people's health. It's required for point source water pollutant discharge to state surface waters. And the point source includes any confined, discrete, discernible conveyance from which water pollutants may be discharged. And also the stormwater discharge associated with construction activities disturbing 1 acre or more, stormwater associated with industrial activity defined in 40 CFR 122.26B14, and stormwater from MS4s. So we have 2 types of permits. The individual permit, which is written to reflect site-specific conditions of a single discharger based on information submitted by that discharger in a permit application. The permit's unique to that discharger. However, we do have categories such as the wastewater treatment plants, power plants, other excavations. So that permit is issued directly to that individual discharger. Then our general permit, which is done through our appendices, was created to cover multiple discharges with similar operations and types of discharges. It's in the rules. and issued to no one in particular with multiple discharge obtaining coverage under that general permit after it is issued, consistent with the permit eligibility and authorization provision. And they must meet all requirements of an NPDES permit. Any discharger that cannot meet all conditions of a general permit must apply for an individual permit or prevent a discharge to state surface waters. Another part handled by our engineering section is the Section 401 water quality certification. Water quality, it is also a water quality standards implementation tool, and it states that a proposed discharge activity will not violate the applicable state water quality standards in Chapter 1154 and the Clean Water Sections 301, 302, 303, 306, and 307. It's required if your project or activity requires a federal permit license, certificate, approval, registration, or statutory exemption, and may result in a water pollutant discharge into state waters. So this is on the federal permits, but it's where the state will designate that the federal regulated discharge doesn't violate the state water quality standards. Okay, now the starts of the updates, the status of our current NPDES general permits. We have a total of 12 general permits. 10 are currently effective, and unfortunately 2 have expired. Appendices B and K, B being our stormwater associated with industrial activity, and K being our small MS4. The appendices C, J, and L are the ones that are going to expire next month, and the rest were recently issued earlier this year. We are currently working on readopting the general permits for the 3 different rule packages. So the first package is Appendix B, the industrial stormwater. We've held our stakeholder meetings and we're currently drafting the revised rules. The EPA has put together a new industrial stormwater permit process through their multi-sector general permit approach, and it's the use of best management practice and potentially benchmark monitoring to address water quality-based effluent limitations. All districts that submitted complete renewal notice of intent prior to the expiration of this general permit were granted administrative extensions. The second is Appendix K, the small MS4 permit. We've also held our meetings and the rules are being drafted and reviewed, and is based on the December 2016 final rule in the partial remand of Phase 2 stormwater. And under this final rule, the permitting authority can choose between 2 alternatives in establishing the permit requirements and general permits for small MS4s. It was a comprehensive general permit, which would require all of the municipalities to follow the same rule, or a 2-step general permit. We chose the 2-step general permit, so it allows DOH to establish some requirements in the general permit and other requirements to a specific MS4 through a second step that involves a public comment process. It allows us the flexibility to address unique circumstances such as different maturity levels of the MS4 and non-traditional MS4s like the DOT, UH, and the military bases. All discharges that submitted complete renewal notice of intent prior to the expiration date were granted administrative extensions. And finally, our current situation, the renewals for appendices C, J, and L, we are updating the effective date. We're removing the Class 1 and Class AA water prohibition that were in previous general permit, or previous appendices C, J, and L. We added language to clarify that state receiving water inspections must be conducted as effluent exits the site and prior to commingling. We revised the monthly compliance report submittals and corrected and updated references to federal and state laws or rules. Our public hearing was held on September 18th, and we're currently drafting responses to the public comments. To continue your coverage, you must submit a complete 2018 renewal notice of intent form. The update to that point is that the deadline to submit your renewal notice of intent was November 7th. We're currently trying to process all of those renewals into administrative extensions by December 5th, which is the expiration date. In the event that the general permits cannot be readopted, which will probably not happen, that whoever submitted their renewal notice of intent on time will be granted their administrative extension. If you have not submitted your renewal notice of intent, we will accept it and we'll do our best. However, of course, priority will be given to the ones that were submitted on time, so there's no guarantee that you'll get the administrative extension. And then like I mentioned earlier, we issued this blanket Section 4 on water quality certification. It will expire March 18, 2022. It covers 7 commonly used nationwide permits. And these are the nationwide permit numbers: 3 for maintenance, 5 for scientific measurement devices, 6 survey activities, 10 mooring buoys, 12 the utility line activities, 13 bank stabilization, and 14 linear transportation. If you'd like to request coverage, you can download, read, and understand the blanket Section 401 water quality certification available on our website. You need to understand your responsibilities and legal obligations and determine if you can comply. Then you complete the e-permitting notice, nationwide permit blanket water quality certification notification form on the our permitting website. Third, we're revising our Chapter 11-54-4, which is our toxic criteria for the EPA's national recommended criteria. So the 3 types are aquatic life criteria, the highest concentration of a toxic chemical in water that is not expected to pose a significant risk to the majority of aquatic species. Fish consumption, which is also known as our human health criteria, which is the highest concentration of a toxic chemical in water that is not expected to pose a significant risk to people. And finally, the application of toxic criteria and NPDES permits based on our state toxic control program, which is the daily maximum effluent limits based on aquatic life criteria, depending on the type of discharge, which is the submerged, non-submerged stream or hydrate, and the 30-day average effluent limits based on fish consumption criteria. So we're currently doing our triennial review, which by rule requires the states to hold public hearings for the purpose of reviewing our water quality standards and federally promulgated water quality standards at least every 3 years. And finally, the e-permitting electronic signature. We currently use our e-permitting portal that you can submit through the internet for our NPDES and Section 401 water quality certification applications and compliance submittals. Because we don't have the authorization to accept electronic signatures, we still required at least the hard copy certification form with an original signature with a CD or DVD containing everything that you submitted electronically. We received our Cromir approval for our e-permitting, where the electronic signatures can be accepted with no more hard copy certification DVDs. However, we're still trying to update our internal database and potentially changing our external user interface. Each certifying person and authorized representative will have to complete a one-time notarized subscriber agreement, and the discharge will have to amend their own internal workflow to adjust the electronic signature requirements. Therefore, we're not rolling this out to the public yet. I guess one thing to add to that, because in the state we've implemented our e-sign program, that we are accepting non-wet signatures. So if you have a PDF of the signature, we're accepting it that way. However, you will still need to submit the hard copy signature form with your CD and DVD. And that concludes my presentation.